Good afternoon again. I'm Victoria Wright, and I'm the Marketing and Outreach Coordinator for Department of Procurement Services. And this is Meet the Department of Procurement Services. I have to let you know ahead of time that we are live streaming this for YouTube. So the cameras are up here, and they're actually basically just on our speakers. But for that reason, I have to let you all know that we are being recorded, and it could be on you. It will be on YouTube by later on this afternoon. The other thing is, everybody here is going to introduce themselves, and after everyone has introduced themselves, then we'll take your questions. So then we'll get, we're going to repeat your question because it has to be said into this microphone. So Terry Glavin, who's an attorney here at DPS, is sort of going to host, and he will repeat your question. So I want you to think that he's just repeating after you, but he's repeating it so that he can say it in the mic, and then he'll pass the microphone down to the person who's going to answer the question. Okay? All right, I'll turn it over to Terry.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to welcome you on behalf of Mayor Rahm Emanuel and Commissioner Jamie Rhee, Chief Procurement Officer for the City of Chicago. We want to thank you for taking time out of your busy work schedules to be here today to meet members of the Department of Procurement Services. We have a number of workshops throughout the year, and we have those workshops listed on a schedule on the wall outside this room. And those workshops get into the details of how process and procedures work for the Department of Procurement Services. So we do want to encourage you to attend as many or all of those workshops. But today's workshop is really an opportunity for you to meet the people that are behind the scenes, and specifically to meet decision makers, to meet heads of the units of the Department of Procurement Services, and get to know who it is you'll be working with as you're working with the City of Chicago, at least through the contracting process. Now, the first thing I think is important to know is the Department of Procurement Services is the contracting authority for the City of Chicago, and it is our obligation, it is our mission to put into place a procurement process that follows the law, that has integrity, it's fair to vendors that participate in city business, and most importantly, creates opportunities for vendors throughout the Chicagoland area and outside of Chicago, opportunities to do business and to get city contracting opportunities. Those are our responsibilities, and we take them very seriously. We have an excellent staff that makes sure that we complete that mission of putting contracts into place, and we do so for all of the city departments. That's over 30 city departments that we have contracting authority for and that we put contracts into place. I myself am legal counsel for the Department of Procurement Services. Our legal unit has a responsibility for making sure, again, that we comply with all laws. We have federal dollars that are involved in contracts. We have to follow federal laws when that's the case. We have state laws under the Illinois Municipal Purchasing Act that we follow. We also have the Chicago Municipal Code that we make sure we're in compliance with. It's the Chicago Municipal Code that creates our department, that empowers Jamie Rhee, the Chief Procurement Officer, gives her the authority to put contracts into place on behalf of the city. So it's a great responsibility that our commissioner takes on, and we make sure that we advise her as far as the laws that are in place to make sure that our unit, our department is following those laws. I can get into a little more detail. As I said, there are workshops that I myself present and other members of the department present, and that's where you're going to get a great amount of detail about what it is that legally we do and what other divisions do. We also have present is head of our professional services unit is Deputy John O'Brien. We have Byron, who's going to introduce himself. He's head of our construction unit. He's also in charge of commodities and other units. We have James Butler, who's present, and he's going to be responding regarding certification and compliance issues. We have Cordell, who's present. He's going to be talking, and he'll introduce himself. He'll be talking about compliance as well. And then Habib is at the end of the line there. He's in charge of sections of our aviation unit. So each of our deputies and managers will have an opportunity today to talk about their responsibilities, what their units do for the Department of Procurement Services. But what I'd like to do is start out and talk a little bit about the legal unit, which is the unit that I work with and that works with the Chief Procurement Officer and Contract Administration on a daily basis. When you deal with procurement, as I've hinted at, you're dealing with laws constantly. And I encourage you to start as vendors. If you're not already doing business with the City of Chicago, to start getting familiar with the laws that apply. We are very familiar with them, and we work with them on a daily basis. We get involved in a number of ways. The major way we're involved in the procurement process as the legal unit is we advise the Chief Procurement Officer about laws that apply and provide guidance as she's making decisions or while she's making or issuing policies and procedures. Our Chief Procurement Officer is an attorney, coincidentally, so she's fully equipped to make decisions with that knowledge and skill she brings to the department. But we do, as a unit, our best to supplement her knowledge with information about the laws that apply to procurement. We also work with our contract administration staff. We have a large staff, members of the separate units that these managers and deputies head. We work with them on a daily basis, from providing contract terms and conditions to them that they can insert into contracts, templates they can use to make sure that contracts are uniform so that vendors are, again, being treated fairly and do business equally with other vendors and the city. When contracts are advertised, we review those advertisements. When bids are submitted, we help evaluate those bids. When there are bid protests, perhaps there's the circumstance where one vendor believes it did not win a contract and should have, that vendor might file a protest. We get involved in the protest resolution process. Once you're doing business with the City of Chicago, there might be times where there are disagreements between you as a vendor and the department you're serving, and we mediate those disagreements or those disputes between departments and you as the provider of goods or services. We even get involved in proceedings like investigations. One of our jobs to make sure that laws are being complied with is we look into activities of vendors. We work hand in hand oftentimes with the Chicago Inspector General in investigations of allegations of waste, allegations of fraud, and perhaps even debarment matters where vendors are being called to answer for allegations of fraud. So there are a number of ways throughout the process that we do get involved as attorneys for the Department of Procurement Services. When you have questions, we also try to assist you as the vendors. We are attorneys for the city, so we do have responsibilities to the city, so we can't always act as advisors to you. We always encourage you to have private counsel if you have legal questions or answers. But where we can, we do our best to assist the vendor community with answers to questions they may have regarding contract issues. And lastly, internally, we are also advisors to, as I mentioned, over 30 departments that do business with the vendor community. So we are constantly in communication with we call them user departments, but departments that are making purchases. We're constantly on the phone with them, constantly emailing, constantly having meetings with the departments out there to make sure that outside, once we put the contracts in place, that we don't just walk away, that we continue to follow the contracts and be of assistance to the departments. So we have a pretty far reach as a legal unit. We do our best to accommodate and to service the vendor community, user departments, and the goal is, again, integrity in the system to make sure that there's a fair process for you to get contracts and equal opportunities, equal access to city business. And we, again, appreciate you being here to learn about city business and to meet the staff that the commissioners put in place in order to service you, the vendor community. So having said that about the legal unit, what I'd like to do next is introduce John O'Brien. He is the deputy in charge of professional services and actually countless matters. So I'll give John the floor to speak to you about his responsibilities. Thank you, Terry.
Good afternoon. I also want to welcome you to meet Department of Procurement Services. My understanding is we're going to ask you to hold your questions until all of the introductions are completed. I'm John O'Brien, Deputy Procurement Officer. My responsibilities are I'm in contract administration, and I'm responsible for 3 units: professional services, vehicles, heavy equipment, and work services. We handle all of the contracting function in those 3 units. We have a group of procurement specialists that interact with 32 different city departments. Procurement Services, we're a service organization for those departments, and not only do we handle the contracting function, but we're also work with compliance certification. We certify firms as minority women-owned business, also disadvantaged businesses. James will talk a little bit more about that, but it's important, the interaction with contract administration, because one of our goals is to provide business opportunities for small local business, also City of Chicago, minority and women-owned businesses. And we have a reciprocal relationship with Cook County where we accept each other's certification. And there is an MBWB ordinance that has on every city contract MBE, WBE, or if it's a federal aid contract, there are DBE, disadvantaged business enterprise goals. So contract administration, we're doing more than just procuring goods and services. We're also there to provide opportunities. Let me go through the 3 units. Professional services, those primarily are all the consulting agreements, and we solicit consultants through 2 processes. One would be an RFP, request for proposal, and that usually would be where we've identified a specific project where, for whatever reason, the city needs to outsource those services to a consultant. It could be anything from financial services, real estate services, brokerage for selling or acquisition of properties. It could be human resource consulting, police, fire, exam administration, architecture, engineering. We have Byron here from our construction unit, but for all the design engineering work. So you get the idea, it's the full realm. And then we also have another process called an RFQ, request for qualifications. And that's where the city would pre-qualify consultants in a vendor pool. And then the city has a task order process where we identify individual projects. We would solicit from the pre-qualified vendor pool, obtain proposals, and go through a whole selection process similar to what we would with an RFP. So from your perspective, for business opportunities, have a couple of suggestions. Our website has a wealth of information. We have a buying plan that we update quarterly, and the buying plan shows what we anticipate advertising within the next 12 to 15 months. And we break it out by type and department. So you can go out to our website and kind of scroll through and see what particular projects you might be interested in. We also encourage you to sign up for DPS alerts on our website. That's where you can get electronic notification of future bid opportunities. So that's a big area. The second unit is vehicles and heavy equipment, and that's all the contracts for our fleet of vehicles. So that's for the purchase and lease of new vehicles. It could also include, so that could be not only police squad cars, it could be ambulances, fire apparatus, heavy equipment that supports, the city's construction program. So anything purchase or lease of vehicles, heavy equipment. And typically, that's a little different. We've put together a bid specification, and that's through a competitive bid process, which is different from an RFP. Under the Illinois Municipal Purchasing Act, competitive bid, you're awarding to the lowest responsible bidder meeting city specifications. So if we're buying equipment, vehicles, that would be the standard, okay? It's a little different. RFP, you're evaluating based on a lot of different criteria. Cost isn't always going to be the predominant factor because you can always negotiate fees on those contracts. The third unit is what we call work services, and those are all the service contracts. So that can include, think of the city not only for our vehicles, but all of our facilities, all the equipment, could be office equipment. So those are all the parts and service contracts, the repair and maintenance agreements. So that also, work services, would be through a competitive bid process. So we would put together a detailed specification, and then you would be bidding, and the lowest bidder meeting those specifications would be awarded the contract. The dollar value of our bid or RFP solicitations, you're looking at over $100,000. And the Municipal Purchasing Act requires open competitive bidding and public advertisement for any requirement over $100,000. So in the 3 units that I described, we're handling over $100,000. Byron manages our small order unit, and he'll talk a little bit about the under $100,000 and target market. If you see a particular bid that is designated as target market, what that means is the bidding is restricted to City of Chicago or Cook County certified minority or woman-owned businesses. So that's something that, for those of you who are certified, to level the playing field, you would be bidding against other firms who are certified. So another suggestion I have, when you go out to our website and look at the bid opening listings, if you see a pre-submittal conference, I would suggest that you attend that conference if you're interested in that particular bid or RFP, because there are networking opportunities, subcontracting, joint venture partnering, if you choose not to submit a bid or proposal as a prime. You can team partner with others, and whoever's attending a pre-submittal conference likely are going to bid. So it's another opportunity that you can explore. So pay attention to the pre-submittal date and time and place. A lot of them are held here. Some are held up in room 1103 City Hall if we anticipate a larger group, or even in our office in room 806. So with that, if you have any questions at the end, feel free to ask. And Terry, do I just introduce Byron? Okay. I'd like to introduce Byron, who's Byron Whitaker. He's our Deputy Procurement Officer for construction, architecture, engineering, commodities, and small orders, and the JOC program.
And the JOC program, and the SBI program. Okay, that's fine. Okay, good afternoon to everyone. Once again, Byron Whitaker, oversee the units that John just mentioned. In terms of the first unit, architecture and engineering unit, that is a professional service type requirement specific to architecture and engineering in terms of design, construction management, construction services, ecological services, things of that nature. So as John mentioned, and I don't want to be too repetitive, but our process mirrors each other in terms of the architecture and engineering services. That is a evaluated process, the RFP, RFQ process. So we basically put out requests for qualifications, requests for proposals, and based on that, we determine either a pool of vendors or consultants and or project specific for designing, construction and engineering services or things of that nature. We do pre-qualify sort of routinely in the area of architecture and engineering services. We honor the IDOT certification or pre-qualification for road and highway and bridges. So in terms of transit though, since IDOT doesn't really pre-qualify in the area of transit, you actually have to submit a separate pre-qualification for transit if you are an engineering firm interested in being pre-qualified for transit. So that you just download that off from the city's website. It'll be evaluated and you'll be determined whether you meet the qualifications or not. And these requirements comes out pretty routinely and pretty regularly. We have annual requirements, we have multi-year type requirements, and then we have, like I said, once again, project-specific requirements. The other unit I oversee, because if you design something, you intend to build something. So if you're going to build it, you're going to need a contract to build that, and that's the construction unit. And that is the other operation that John was speaking about, the competitive bid process. As I said, our architecture and engineering services is the evaluated process. The construction, as well as my other units, commodities and small orders, are all competitive bid requirements. Basically, as John indicated, we have the State Purchasing Act, we have the Municipal Code, which basically said that we are responsible to award a contract to the most responsive bidder offering the lowest quote. So that's how that competitive bid process works. In terms of commodities, which are also overseas, once again, commodities is anything that the city may use. It usually is an item that the city needs for its client department to perform their day-to-day operation. In other words, the city personnel, the city crews will sometimes do the work as opposed to private contractors or as opposed to private employees. But however, in order for them to do the work, they need the stock and material to get the work done. So using commodities is some requirement that our client department needs in order to do the day-to-day operation of the various units of the city of Chicago. As John mentioned, all requirements are basically over $100,000 in terms of a competitive bid in terms of formally advertising, but we do have sometimes needs for requirements that's less than $100,000, and we consider that an informal process. We call that the small orders unit, which I'm also responsible for. It's pretty much commodity based, however it could be service based. Once again, the threshold for that unit is basically where the requirement is anticipated to be less than $100,000. So where the requirement is going to be less than $100,000, we would do a less informal solicitation, and we basically, we don't really advertise. We just kind of post on the web, and you can download it, and you can submit your bids. Now, the key to the small order unit is that for anything under $10,000, we try to put target market. As John indicated, target market is where we restrict the bidding or responses to city certified or Cook County certified MBW firms. That's the first order solicitation. So we try to make certain that for a small orders unit that we solicit that first. However, if we can't find any particular respondents who could meet the requirement, then we may, what we call unrestricted, just open it up once again, but still be under the threshold of $100,000. That's the key. It has to be, in order for us to make an award under small orders, the contract must be less than $100,000. As I said, part of what else I do in terms of particularly those who are involved in construction, we have a JOC program, and a JOC program is basically a sort of construction term agreement type requirements where you bid a factor against a unit price book. There's actually a separate workshop for JOC, so if you're really interested, you need to take advantage of that, or you can just see me after the class. Additionally, because there's a lot of city dollars sometimes spent in the area of constructions, and the smaller companies, the small and local certified companies found it somewhat difficult to compete against the majority type firms. The city came up with what we call the SBI program, or the Small Business Initiative Program, which is once again a construction-based program, and it's based on the size standard of the SBA. And there's two versions of the SBI program. There's one, SBI 1, where as long as you meet the size standard of the SBA, you will be considered SBI eligible, and therefore you can participate in the program. And the other one is SBI 2, where it's actually just one half of the size standard of the SBA, allow you to be eligible to compete in the program. And then, like I said, there's just those of you that are interested, there's actually some special conditions governing that program that you could kind of read up on to determine whether you think, based on your company size standard, that you'll be able to meet it. Like I said, we advertise our projects for bid in the Chicago Sun-Times, as well as post them on the web, as well as the buying plan, as well as issuing the what we call a bid opening sheet every week, every Monday through the DPS alert. You want to make certain you sign up. If you're interested in doing business with the city, you definitely want to sign up for DPS alert. DPS alert makes you aware of upcoming opportunities that's currently available or will be available shortly. We do have a buying plan that projects, to give you a forecast or projection through, I think, a couple of quarters, or maybe the next year or so. But the DPS alert actually tells you, make you aware of the bid openings that are current or soon to be current. So it gives you a chance to know what's coming out to bid and what is currently out to bid. And as John mentioned, if there's a pre-bid identified, you may want to participate in that, because that's where you get to either interact with people or get to know exactly what the requirement is and ask questions about a particular requirement. So I'll say so if you got any questions, I'll save them till the end. Okay. Next, I'm going to introduce Habib, who is basically over our aviation division, and we'll let him tell you some of all the great things he does for the city.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Habib. Thank you very much. I most welcome everyone. We appreciate your time and interest in all city projects, especially in aviation projects. I'm a manager of the aviation unit. We have a little bit of every type of contracts, work services, construction projects, maintenance, and AV, architectural engineering services contracts, and professional services contracts. John has already explained very well the procedure and process of our contracts, which is standardized throughout the city. So we have new programs and new projects coming up for Midway Airport, big projects, and we will be very much appreciating your interest in those projects as well. Right now you can see our projects on the city's website, on the bid opportunity sheets, and also in the buying plan. The first step should be buying plan, and we will appreciate always, more and more bidders. And if you have any more questions, my number is 312-744-4915. Again, thank you so much for coming. Yes, please. My number is area code 312-744-4915. Any questions? I can, after the class, I can be in-depth explain any specific questions. And you can also call me to discuss any projects related to aviation airports, Midway and O'Hare Airport. Thank you so much, everyone. Mr. Borden.
Thank you. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Now, you've heard from our dynamic divisions of the Procurement Services Department. You've heard from our legal team, our professional services team, construction team, and aviation team. Now we're going to bring it home. We're going to talk about certification, and my associate, James, will talk about compliance to wrap this up. John touched on some of the things that we do in certification, and it probably makes me want to ask a question of you. How many people here are certified? Okay, so I thank you for coming, and I don't need to talk anymore, right? No. Okay. Okay, well, just to give you a little bit of background, my name is Cordell McGarry again. I work with the Certification Division of Certification and Compliance for the Department of Procurement Services. And in our unit, we're responsible for the administration of 5 certification programs that are designed to try to create a level playing field for small eligible businesses to participate in opportunities that the city offers through its procurement department. We contract somewhere around $2 billion in services, about a year contract, so there's a lot of opportunities out there. And one of the goals of our unit is to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to participate in that opportunity. So, to that end, we're responsible for, again, 5 certification programs. Those programs, I'll give you the acronyms, and I'll try to spell them out for you. We have 3 local programs that are called the MBE, Minority Business Enterprise, WBE, Women Business Enterprise, or Women-Owned Business Enterprise, and a third one called Business Enterprises for People with Disabilities. Those 3 programs were created by the city, I think around in '83 somewhere, quite a while ago, and designed to try to foster participation on city contracts. The other 2 programs are federal programs, and they're called the DBE, or Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, and ACDBE, which is Airport Concessions Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. They have the same purpose, to try to create a level playing field for participation in government-funded opportunities. We have approximately 2,800 businesses that are participating in the program, and of course we have 5 certification programs, so some of those businesses hold multiple certifications. So in total, we have about roughly 4,000 plus certification just cycling over on an annual basis. So we have a lot of activity, and there's a lot of opportunities still remaining for people to participate. So With that in mind, basic qualifications for the program will consist of businesses that are owned by individuals or groups that are comprised at least 51% ownership. They have to be either minority or woman-owned business or considered disadvantaged. And they have to be certified in the area of specialization and control that area of specialization. I think when Byron talked a little bit about SBI, the Small Business Initiative, he talked about SBA size standards. Well, businesses are certified by industry, and those industries are broken down by the SBA and what's called size standards. So there's a definition for what constitutes a small business. So for example, you can be in construction, you can be a contractor that's about in plumbing. The SBA may have defined your size standard as being a business that generates average sales over a 3-year period of, let's say, $7.5 million. So if your average sales kind of goes in that category, you're considered a small business and eligible for participation. So that's the basic parameters of the program itself. We require that the business ownership, again, be held by a qualified minority or woman to own a woman. We also require that that individual or group of individuals have the expertise and knowledge to be able to control the business and control its activities. You have to be actively involved in the business itself in order to participate in the program. We generally will require, most of our certifications will run an average term of 5 years. And then we also require annual, let's say, renewals or verifications of ownership. The unique thing about our federal programs is that there's no expiration date. Once you're certified indefinitely. And that's great in many cases. I think John also mentioned earlier that we share reciprocity with other agencies like Cook County, for example. Our local programs, our MBE and WBE programs, will allow you to participate in contract opportunities with the county as well as the city. We recognize one another's certifications. And also your MBE local certifications will also afford you the opportunity to participate in projects offered by other agencies such as the public school system. There's probably Water Reclamation District and other sister agencies or bodies that offer procurement opportunities. So it's a lot of things going on and a lot of opportunities out there. And I thank you for allowing me to share that with you. So I'm going to turn it over now to James, who's going to talk about compliance. The unique thing about James and I, if you look at it like this, you have to be certified in order to participate in the party, right? In order to come to the party. Oh, yes, most certainly. Airport concessions, too, yes. But the unique thing about certification is that you have to have a ticket to come to the party, so we help give you that ticket. Once you get to the party, he takes over. And I'm going to let him take over right now. James?
All right, thank you. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Last but not least. So, everyone, you've heard a ton of information regarding our process and DPS. Great programs, okay? Cordell mentioned all of the 5 certification programs that we offer small businesses opportunity to be certified in. Okay, now you're certified, okay? Contract's been awarded by our department. Okay, you're a certified firm. What do we do? I'm responsible for reviewing the the compliance plan. Let me go back, because I didn't formally introduce myself. So I'm James Butler. I'm the Senior Certification and Compliance Officer with the Department of Procurement Services, okay? And our division, of course, is compliance. And like I said, we are responsible for reviewing the compliance plan as part of the overall contract. So let me go back. So you guys are certified, contract's been awarded, okay? The prime contractor has partnered with a certified firm to complete, okay, a portion, be it a percentage or a dollar amount of the contract, okay, and we monitor that plan. So say it's a construction project and you are a certified firm and you have partnered with the prime contractor to provide construction services in the area of pouring concrete or installing rebar or something like that. So what we do is we make certain that the prime contractor is utilizing your firm, okay, at that committed percentage or dollar amount that's stated in the contract, and we make certain that you as a certified firm is performing a commercially useful function. Once you get certified, and you partner with a prime contractor on a contract, you're going to hear that term quite a bit, a commercially useful function. And what a commercially useful function is, okay, is where you actually supervise, manage, and perform the work on a particular contract. Very easy and straightforward. So as the compliance division, we make certain that that's actually taking place. How do we actually do that? So we come out and we do site visits. We do site visits, announced and unannounced, okay? We actually interview your firm. We talk to your management. We are on site seeing the work being performed, okay? So it's all a part of monitoring the compliance plan. So say if you're a prime contractor, okay, and you want to revise or change your compliance plan, okay, then you would have to submit in writing to our division, okay, the request to actually make the change. Maybe you want to bring on some more WBEs, or you want to switch out an MBE. So that's when you would submit the request, okay, we would look at it, you would submit the proper documentation, and more than likely that request for the revision would be approved. We also close out contracts, okay? So the contract's done, all right? We get the final dollar values from our user department, and we're responsible for making certain that the prime contractor has fulfilled his or her commitment, okay, as part of the contract to give its MW, DBE, AC, DBE, or that fifth. Yeah, right. They've actually fulfilled their commitment to allow you as a certified firm to complete that amount of business, like I said, via dollar amount or percentage on the contract. So that's in a nutshell what we do. It gets a little bit more complicated than that. Basically, say there's a pre-construction meeting, all right, the contract's been awarded, okay, they have a pre-construction meeting before the work starts. We attend those. We put together a compliance plan or packet that is full of information that lets the prime contractor know what they should and shouldn't be doing, okay? It introduces the prime contractor to the internal systems that we use to help us monitor the compliance plan. And of course, we just reach out as much as we possibly can to the prime contractors as well as to the certified firms to see if, okay, everything is going smoothly, if there are any questions and things like that. So that's my spill in a nutshell, of course, and if you guys have questions, you can actually ask me now since I'm the last person. But, oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So that's it for me. Thank you for listening. I'm going to bring up Kathy.
Thank you. The gentleman up here. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, James. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, last but not least, how about that? So my name's Kathy Kwiatkowski, and I'm the Department's Director of Public Affairs. So I don't have a traditional procurement, certification, or compliance role, but our commissioner brought on, the division is myself and Victoria Wright that you met earlier, because it's just such a priority for our mayor and our commissioner to make sure that everyone has the information that you need, that you know the rules, that you know the opportunities that are available to you. Like you'll see some of our boards here on the side. You know, our mission, one of the first things I did when I started on board was we just designed a logo and an identity for the department. And our mission statement is, and you see it in that little kind of diamond next to DPS, integrity, public trust, and the law is our guiding principles. And we are so committed to transparency that we very much wanted it in our logo, which you can see in our letters how they're overlapping there. So we really want to make sure that we're as transparent as possible in everything that we do. So as some of the team has mentioned, you know, we want you to know about our opportunities in the long-range forecast and the buying plan, on the weekly basis and the DPS alert, what is on the street, you know, and how can you get involved. We encourage everyone to come to our pre-bid conferences, because there you can, see who's actually going to bid, get to meet those primes and subs, see how you can partner. So it goes from the long range to the weekly to even the daily. Our newest initiative is, if you're not following us on social media, you should, because it's actually us posting every day on Facebook, Twitter, and soon next month we'll be officially launching the YouTube channel we'll be live streaming workshops like today. We'll have some other educational animations or videos just about our bid incentives and how you can get involved. So you can follow us at all those, or Chicago DPS is our handle. So we try to communicate in those ways. We also are out in the community. We host or attend over 100 outreach events a year. We host 3 really large conferences. I see some familiar faces, so I know some of you have been out to our vendor fair. We also do a construction summit in the winter for construction firms. And then we've done a financial symposium just about if you're looking for loans and these sorts of things. So we attend or host a lot of events. We try to communicate electronically. And then we're also always just looking for feedback and input. One thing we've heard a lot from vendors is that, just how, if you work with the city, how do you work with some of our other sister agencies? So we've been tasked with trying to work together to collaborate more. So you'll see in our most recent buying plan, it's actually a consolidated buying plan. We invited all of our sister agencies, so the schools, the park district, city colleges, et cetera, et cetera. What are you guys going to be looking for? What are you going to be looking to procure from small business? How do we start communicating as one voice and one city? So there's been a lot of energy around that and excitement around that, and more of that to come. So I know we've kind of talked a lot, and we have a little bit of time for questions. So I just wanted to also just make sure that that we are trying to be open and communicate with you, and these are ways that you can stay in touch with us, and we always do want to hear from you. Thank you.
Well, as you can see, we have our internal sort of wheels behind the scenes that keep everything moving, and a lot of it, you don't really get to see it when you're in the veterinary community. When you're the public, you don't always get to see it. And Deputy Kwiatkowski is that face, that outward contact for everyone that promotes sort of a third purpose of our department. I talked about integrity in our system, and I talked about open access. But all of that can seem meaningless on the outside if there's not transparency. And Kathy does an excellent job of creating that transparency, creating that outreach, that window for you to see in to procurement services and see how things work, why they work. It's why you're here today. These outreach programs are the responsibilities of Kathy. And in addition to that, all those workshops. Each of our deputies and managers talked about terms. They talked in a language that we speak at procurement. They touched upon competitive bidding, RFP process, talked about certification. And it's really just a taste of what it is that we do at Procurement Services, and it's a chance for you to meet the leadership behind those that process. But I hope it whets your appetite for looking at the work schedule and workshop schedule, and seeing what additional information you can learn by going to each one of those workshops. There's a workshop that covers just about every one of those topics that the deputies and managers hit upon during their brief summary of what they do. So thank you, and having said all that and having provided all that information through our leadership, I'll open it up for questions and answers. And what I'll do is if you have questions, please raise your hand. I'll knock them out one by one, and as you ask them, I'll try and repeat the question the best I can for video, and then I'll hand it to whoever can best answer the question. So yes, sir, we have a first question.
I have a question. I have an invisible certificate. It's disabled, and it's a DEPD, and every time I go through, you have nothing on there for it. I mean, am I considered a minority or what have you? Because even at a lighting came out, and I filled out the form and everything. I talked to people, and they said, well, you can't qualify, you won't qualify. So I went and got a female partner to team up with me, some manufacturer, and she's in California, so it didn't qualify here in Chicago. Okay. And so I had quite a problem with
So, gentleman has stated that he received a certification from both state of Illinois and city of Chicago regarding status as being disabled, and is curious about what opportunities or what eligibility there is based on that certification.
Yeah, I mean, is there any, or where do I fall in the category?
And I'll ask you.
I think your question kind of hits on a couple of points. One point it hits on is the actual certification itself, which we do in our department. So we have reviewed your business plan, and you've been identified as a business that's owned by an individual that meets the qualifications for certification as a disabled individual. So we've given you certification in that regard. Now, I think the second part of your question pertains to opportunities that may come about, which again, I think that's another area that we're looking at. I mean, when let's say I'm not familiar with how many RFPs have been issued in that regard, but most certainly your certification does enable you to participate in those opportunities if and when they come about. So maybe.
So you're BEPD certified with the city? Okay, so there's two, we just worked on a video with this, with the Mayor's Office with People with Disabilities, so I have a little background on that. So number one, I mean, your certification, there's a number of even private businesses that acknowledge the BEPD certification towards if there's participation goals. So that's outside of that. So we certify you, but then you can, then you have that credential for other programs that take that as like if there's goals, including disabled businesses. At the city, it's actually a bid incentive. So there isn't like a percentage set aside for contracting opportunities for BEPD certified individuals, but it is a bid incentive, and I'm happy to send you the information about that in the ordinance. So what that is if a prime contractor used you as just a sub, then they would receive a credit on a future bid. So there's just opportunities in that way to kind of use your certification to your advantage, but there isn't a like a set aside percentage of goals for BEPD certified firms. Sure. 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 Oh yeah, I mean there's definitely different, I think, incentives that you probably qualify for, and the BEPD is actually an incentive, not a percentage goal at the city. So I mean, happy to talk with you offline too at the certification team more specifically about that.
And also, just to add, what I can also do is I'll provide my email to you, and what I'll forward to you is a section of the municipal code that creates the BEPD certification, and I can talk with you more about how it applies and definitely try to address your specific circumstances. Yes. Now, keep in mind, and I want to pass the question definitely on to Cordell regarding the certification process. But okay, so it's not that you're seeking certification. You're talking about once you're certified, and you don't have necessarily the same experience as other certified firms. How do you compete with those other certified firms? I'll pass that question on to Cordell. I can address the question. As far as opportunities that are created by your certification, it is meant to build capacity in the workplace. It is created to give you opportunities. Now, just like any other business, there are opportunities created Also, they are supplemented by your efforts as far as networking. The city does a great job of creating networking opportunities where you can work with other minority firms together as subs on contracts. You can also network with prime contractors to get an opportunity to gain a business opportunity, and through that opportunity gain experience. Now keep in mind, as a certified firm, you have to have some experience that you brought to the table to become certified. You have to be someone who's actually operating that business. It's usually the case where once you apply for certification, you demonstrate that you have knowledge in that industry. Well, you gain that knowledge from somewhere, and that knowledge is brought to the table. It's not as though that experience that you had prior to certification disappears once you're certified. The certification is sort of an add-on to your already existing experience. So that experience gets your foot in the door, and from there, the certification program gives you additional opportunities to build that experience, gain financial capacity, gain experience, capacity in the form of experience, and eventually, hopefully, grow into a prime contractor. I'll let John take another part of the question.
Well, I guess the best way that I can answer it would be to give you an analogy. Let's say if we were advertising an RFQ, request for qualifications, let's say for auditing, accounting services. Well, you have a large variety. You know, you've got your Ernst & Young, you have Deloitte & Touche that can bring a lot of resources, very large company, and then you have the smaller auditors that can be one or two people. And what you have to understand is when the city is evaluating your experience and qualifications, they're not really necessarily looking at the size of the company or necessarily at the number of years of your experience, but kind of at the credentials based on your references and what information you provide. And understand the city, when we issue task orders, it could be from anything from a very small audit that would take a couple weeks to what Deloitte & Touche would do, which is a citywide single audit. And that, frankly, you have to go through City Council, the Finance Committee, and they dictate who gets the large job. So what I'm saying to you is when we qualify firms, we are selecting multiple firms. We're pre-qualifying. So you're going to have the small firm, medium-sized, and the large firms. And what we're always talking to city departments about is, can you take the larger project and unbundle some of that? And so for your smaller firms, they have an opportunity. The city goes even a step further. You will see when we do a request for qualification, it will be a target market solicitation where we're pre-qualifying to build a pool of just minority and women-owned businesses. And then we have the non-target solicitation, which is for the majority firms. And then when we train departments, we say, to the maximum extent possible, we want you not only to unbundle projects, but send it through the target market pool to provide business opportunities. So in answer to your question, there always is going to be varying levels of experience, but that's not to say that larger is better, or that somebody who, 10 years of experience versus someone who maybe is a startup, you might be a CPA, you have the credentials, but you've only started a business, maybe you're 1 or 2 years, but it doesn't mean that you can't qualify to do audit work. So that's my analogy to show you, and I'm sure whatever business area you're in, it could be a similar situation.
And One last thing I want to add is keep in mind certification is supplemented with other benefits, like we have a mentor protege program where you can come under the wing of a experienced prime contractor, work together, and not only work on a project that exists, but also have mentoring relationship where you actually learn from the prime about business operations like invoicing, expensing, and a number of other items. There's also a small business initiative involving joint ventures. So you can join forces with other vendors through a joint venture, which is an agreement for one project to work together, where you can join your experience, your financial resources as a joint venture and bid together as a prime. So there are a number of ways that you can participate and gain experience, and that certification oftentimes is part of the puzzle in being able to take advantage of those opportunities and programs. Lastly, diversity credit program is one other way where your certification might allow you to gain experience in the private sector that you can then carry over to future city projects once you've gained experience. Because the diversity credit program, for example, is a program that gives prime contractors on city contracts credit when they utilize certified firms on their private business, on their private contracts. So that's another a program you can take advantage of. Again, part of another workshop. That's the incentive workshop. So there's just a whole bunch of workshops that are going to get into these fine details. I encourage you again to attend those workshops. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that would be architecture, engineering, all of those contracts are through Byron's group, so I'll let you answer.
Okay, well, like I said, we first of all have two ways in which we basically do our A&E services. We have project-specific projects where we actually put out to bid requests for qualifications or requests for proposals regarding a particular project, and also because the Department of Transportation, they have an ongoing solicitation in terms of a transit project, but also if you are interested in bridges, roadway, or highway, then you could basically achieve the same function in terms of participating in the city program if in fact you are IDOT certified. Now, in terms of the particular requirement that you're speaking of, more than likely, those will probably be the task order type pools that are developed for the purpose of achieving those requirements, or actually a what we call a project-specific project that's going to go out to bid. Only I can do is recommend that you look at our buying plan and see what's first of all is coming up. We do have a couple projects that are going to be advertised, I'll say within the next month, that are what we call one-shots or one-offs, and they may involve, I know we have one involving QA, QC, quality control, quality assurance. That may be something, I don't know the exact scope of that project, but that could be something that lends itself to what I think you're speaking of.
Yes, you can bid to the prime architecture and engineering firms, who are bidding as a prime on RFP, RFQs. You can bid as a sub to them, and they will keep you in their team so they can utilize your good services.
I was wondering if there are any people that handle, like, what I'm interested in is Chicago Park District, Public Schools, Transit Authority. Is there a particular department, or is everyone handle
It's just exactly, John hit it. The question is how can you look into opportunities at Park District, probably Chicago Transit Authority, and other agencies? Those are, as John just said, sister agencies. Sister agencies, for everyone's information, are separate governmental units. Growing up in the city, you might think the city of Chicago operates everything from sports equipment at the park to running the trains, but those are actually separate governmental units, Park District, CTA. And if you go to cityofchicago.org, the city's website, and you go to the departments tab and open that up, there's a list of all city departments, but there's also a link that's active that'll take you to a list of sister agencies. And those sister agencies have their own contracting authority. They follow their own rules. They advertise their own opportunities.
On our website, on the right-hand side, we have a link for every single department you just said, taking the registration.
I can offer a couple of contacts. CTA, their purchasing director is Rafi Serafin.
It'll be in the buying. It'll be in the
Oh,
buying
you want
plan,
to?
too.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I
there's a couple of sources on our website, cityofchicago.org/DPS. On the right-hand side, as Victoria was saying, there's a hyperlink to each of the sister agencies' procurement site. So so you can go right there. And also on our website is our buying plan, and so within the buying plan itself is also the list of all the sister agencies, and this time what they're actually buying. So you can get a look ahead at what they're buying too, and then there's links to their procurement websites also right in there.
What we'll do is we'll take one more question, and then anyone who wants to stick around, we'll answer any additional questions that you might have. We'll take one more.
So, Kathy, when you were saying on the buying plan, there's links to the primaries, and I think that's what I'm looking for. We're certified, and since we're a hybrid of a service company and a commodity, we know we can't win in the just bidding the straight, when we go out to bid. We're just not going to win in those situations. But where we've benefited is when we get from companies that are primes, they find us and they'll send us a Schedule C form to fill out.
Yes.
But we've gotten that by luck, and so we want to find out how to get that by marketing to them.
Sure.
So I don't know where on the website to find
Sure.
the people that are filling out these Schedule Cs.
Sure. So there's a couple of things you can do, and actually we teach another one of our classes how to navigate the DPS website. So you want to grab a schedule and see when the next one of those is. But on our website, I believe it's under the Contract Administration tab. And we can kind of walk you through that too. There's actually a section, it's called a takeout list, bid takeout list. So for anyone who comes to this window and pulls a bid, you can see, in addition to that suggestion I had about coming to the pre-bid conferences, so on the website it's called the takeout list. So you can see who's pulling that takeout list, because we ask for their business cards so we can send them updates to addendums and whatnot. And so you can actually pull that list and you can directly market to those folks.
It's hard to go to all these things.
Yep.
Leave the office for
Understood. So, and I mean, and then, next year we'll start teaching classes about e-procurement, because that's a 2016 thing that'll be going on. So there'll be more, there is a lot of transparency online, but because a lot of things you can download now, so you don't know who takes those solicitations. But there still is a section for this takeout list, and you could see who's pulling that, and then you can market to them that way.
And also, in addition to takeout sheets, you can look on the city's website. We have attendance sheet also, who attended the pre-bid.
That's right. Thank you, Habib.
It shows their name and their number.
Right, and there's so the website that has the current solicitations, just the quick link is cityofchicago.org/bids, And so that's like everything that's live on the street right now. So it'll have the solicitation document, or if it's too big, it'll say you need to come here to pick up the disc. But it'll have the addendums, and then I believe also there, that's where the link is, like the attendance list from the pre-bid. So that's another good strategy. Thank you, Habib. So as Terry had said, oh, I'm sorry, Victoria.
Before we start the workshop, if you fill out your evaluation catalog and also let those. And then we're going to try to stick around for everybody to ask questions. Just if anybody needs to leave, we don't want to hold anybody up. We try to keep the workshop to an hour. So we have a,
We're definitely here if anyone wants to. Thank you. Thank you very much. No, it's fine. I did. It's okay. We've got to like figure out how to time it so that we're